Right, new suspension leg. Just going to take off the top nut here, put on the little caps from the old suspension, bolt them on with this, and it's wound all the way down at the minute. I think I'm going to go for that as a starting point. Probably more sensible to start in the middle, but yeah, YOLO. Right, next job, Allen key in the top, wrench on the bolts, just tighten those up so it all kind of neatly sits together. Okay, so suspension leg is now in. It's all the way down, sitting on the lip at the bottom. I'm just going to shove the bolts through here before I put it on the car, just to keep them safe. This was a bit tough to get in, to widen it. Had to file a little bit down on the actual leg itself to get it in, but it's ready to go back on. One thing I'm gonna do just before any of this goes back on the car is I'm gonna check the torque ratings on these bolts from the Haynes manual, and then we should be good to go. So we have the front anti-roll bar out. The H&R one's going on. I mean, they're chalk and cheese. They're quite thick. The new one of those. To get it out, I've done it from the passenger side. I've had to put a jack kind of under the exhaust just to lift it a little bit and get it through this gap. I'm just going to thread the H&R one back through. So anti-roll bar is in. What I've done, put it in loose. Once it's in loose, bolted on, it was a bit of a pain, to be fair, to get in. A little bit hot, even though it's cold today. And then I've come to the passenger side and I've wiggled it just as far as it'll come into the little stopper, which is on the arm itself, and then it'll be in the right position. Right, so next thing to do is fasten the leg in. Right, so the way I'm going to marry this back up is drive shaft first. I'm going to hold this up, slot it through, and then sit the bottom new ball joint into its hole. This one will attach later, but then just kind of angle it up towards the hole at the top. Okay, that's now all set. The last thing I'm going to do is just put on the bolts to keep everything in place. So the one to retain the drive shaft, the one on the bottom of the steering arm joint here, and one on the ball joint below. That's the new one. It's just going to hold it all in place nicely. This one I'm actually going to tighten as much as I can to stop the drive shaft moving. That one's in. And then I'm just going to get the jack. Put it under the arm and push the arm up into the top mount. So now it's come through the top mount, and we're just going to put the little cap and the nut back on here. So I threaded the anti-roll bar through pretty easy from the passenger side, the same way we took out the original anti-roll bar. And now what we're going to do is just mount it here over the bushes with the mounting bracket which came off the old bar, and then here there's two nuts to go in. I threaded the anti-roll bar through from the passenger side like it was, like we removed the old anti-roll bar. We're going to use the brackets from the old one and then put the new bolts through here with the retaining plate obviously in place. Like I said, new bolts going in. Just makes sense to do them at this point. They're fairly cheap, to be fair, from the camper spare shops. And then here just put a little bit of grease on the bracket so I can slide that over the bush easy. So I got the top bolt in slightly, a couple of threads just so I can get the bottom one in. It's pretty stiff to get this, so I'm going to use a set of grips to just pull it towards the bracket and see if we can get the screw in. So they're in, and I'm just nipping them up a little bit just so they're nice and secure. And whilst it's loose like this, I'm just going to go over the other side and get that plate on as well. It's good while they're loose, and then you can move the anti-roll bar a little bit and then obviously tighten them up when we're ready. Right, exactly the same for this side. I've tightened them in and now it's loose, and you can see there the way that's going to operate. Kind of stick up there, fasten to the suspension above. Easy peasy. A little tip whilst I'm tightening these bolts up: the amount of light coming through when the engine bay is open is really helpful. Obviously I can see absolutely everything in here, so nice little tip there. So one of the last bits to do is to fit the new drop links. These are the ones where they're adjustable, 3 different sizes here, and they connect the 2 joints to one arm. So each one has these washers. These washers point inwards, so like this, so they grip around the components on your suspension, and nuts on the end. You can see them here still attached to this one. Right, so as a starting point, we've got the suspension leg in line with the anti-roll bar. The idea here is to fit the one which basically has the least tension on the anti-roll bar when it's sat on the floor. So as it should be straight at this point, and so that's probably a good place to start. But just zoom out here, you can see this one is quite short. I don't think that one's going to be the one in use for us. The middle one looks like it's about right, so we're going to go with that one out of the set. Just for a size comparison, put the big one in. The big one just seems to be too long for us. So if you don't remember, the original drop link went through from the back on the suspension leg, and then on the bottom it went through to the back this way. So what we're going to do is, first up, we're going to fasten the bar into the 2 end pieces by screwing that on. I'm going to screw it right to the end where the nut is. Right, so it's a little bit higgledy-piggledy, so I'm just going to adjust it a little bit, and that's where I use the nut to lock it in place here. So that's the way we want it. And take the retaining nut off, and one of those washers, the other one still on there. Right, so I'm going to thread this through first on the suspension leg. I'm going to put this bit on to clamp around that suspension leg, and then the nut on to make sure it's quite hard to show this bit one-handed, but I threaded it through. Brass washer on one side, brass washer on the other side. These fit actually perfectly into the hole on the suspension leg, and then I'm just going to put this on loose for now. And then we have a look at the bottom. It does seem, you know, that it's about right. So I'm going to fix that up. Time will tell on test drive whether that's good for us or not. This is going to swing upwards, so yeah, I don't think there's any danger of it hitting the drive shaft or anything like that. So that's the reason for kind of shortening these. Take the load from the anti-roll bar when it's just stood on the ground, not cornering, and make sure when it is under load that it's not going to swing and hit anything in the wheel arch, including the drive shaft. So there we are, that's in place, attached to the bar at the bottom. Not tightened it up yet, just trying to decide whether I'm happy with it. I'll probably do the other side first before I tighten any of this up. In fact, at the end of this video we'll go through all the kind of torque settings anyway to make sure all these are tightened up. Right, so just bolting it all back together now. This is a bit where we're going to torque everything up with our torque bar. I'm going to get it on with the impact wrench first, torque it up. The drive shaft retaining nut is probably the largest amount of torque we need to apply to any of these bolts, but I'll put a sheet on here on the next slide just to show you that the order that I'm going to do them in. But just to go through it, I'm going to do the ball joints first, then I'm going to do the anti-roll bar clamp, then the anti-roll bar drop link itself, then these bolts on the back of the leg, and then I'm going to put the caliper back together, and the disc back on, the plate back on the disc, etc. And we should be good to then go up top and talk about those top mount bolts. And that's it, got a complete side calipers back on. Ignore the rusted disc, it's just the water bouncing up. Put a new backing plate on here. All this is tightened up now, every nut and bolt, and it's looking good. Right, it's just got a bit dark, but the wheel is on, significantly less kind of arch gap even when it's on the floor. See the nice little bit of purple in there. But yeah, I'll have to get the other side done, so we'll do the other side, and then we'll put the top mounts back together once it's on the floor.